Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to the DIPS online class. I trust all of you are safe and well. So, students, let's start. We are in the chapter 5 of your science book, that is Rocks and Minerals. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about different kinds of rocks and minerals. Okay, so there are actually three kinds of rock present or three kinds of rock found, and these are igneous type of rock, second one is the sedimentary type of rock, and the third kind is metamorphic. And among these three kinds of rock, in the previous class we have discussed about igneous rocks. Okay, that means the formation of igneous rocks we have discussed in the previous class. So today we are going to discuss about the types of the igneous rocks. We will start from the different, that means we will start from the classification of the igneous rocks. So how many types of the igneous rocks found? So basically you will see um, in this text that there are actually four kinds. Okay, four kinds of igneous rocks found, and these are obsidian, pumice, third is basalt, and granite. So these four kinds of igneous rocks are generally found on earth. So let us discuss one by one. The first category of the igneous rocks are obsidian. So obsidian rock is the kind of igneous rock, and their feature is actually they are glass like. That means they are very much transparent. Okay, they are very much transparent. So as they are very much transparent, that is why they looks like a glass. Okay, and they have another feature, that is their sharp edges. That means the edges are very much sharp. Okay, their edges are very much sharp, and they are found basically in the color green and black. Okay, so these two kinds of color you will found basically in the case of obsidian rock. So that is why this type of obsidian rocks are generally used for making tools and making ornaments. Ornaments mean different kinds of jewelries. Okay, so these are the uses of this kind of rocks. The next category of the igneous rock is pumice. Okay, so this kind of pumice rock. Okay, so let us see the diagram of the pumice rock. You can see this is the pumice rock, and you can see that there are different, there are huge number of holes, or the huge number of pores are found. Okay, you can see these are the small pores present. Okay, numerous pores are found in the pumice kind of rock. Okay, so how this or why these pores are present? Okay, so actually we know that igneous rocks are actually uh, formed by the formed from the magma. Okay, when the magma rises up, okay, when the magma rises up on the earth's surface, they will called as lava, and when the lava cools down, then they form the igneous rock. So pumice rock is also igneous rock. So at the during the time of cooling of the lava, if some air particles trapped within the lava, so that if this happen, so that will convert into pumice kind of rock. So these holes or the pores are actually found on pumice rock because of the air particles trapped during the formation of this kind of igneous rock. Okay, and as the huge number of pores are found in the pumice rock, they are actually very much light in weight, and they can float on water. So that is a very interesting feature of this kind of rock. Okay, so let us read the feature of the pumice rock. So actually they are found in cream colored. Okay, they're found in the cream colored. Okay, or sometimes they found in the gray color. Okay, and they form when the lava cools quickly, and that during the cooling period of this lava, some kind of air particle or some kind of gas, some kind of gas trapped inside the lava, and in this way this kind of pumice rock is formed, and the tiny holes actually formed by the trapping of this kind of gas. Okay, and that is why the pumice rock is very much light in weight and they can float on water. So now the important thing is, so this is about the feature of the pumice rock we have discussed. Now what are the uses of this kind of rock? So pumice rock is basically used in case of polishing the furniture, and clean the floors of house. Okay, and it also used in the as a body scrubber. Body scrubber means scrubbing the body, scrubbing the skin. Okay, so the skin can clean. So cleaning of the skin, for the purpose of cleaning of the skin of our body, we actually scrub our skin. Okay, and for that scrubbing purpose sometime this kind of pumice rock is used. Okay, and powdered form, if the pumice rock sometime grinded to get the powder, and this powdered pumice are used in case of polishing the teeth. So dentist basically used. Dentist means the who actually that uh, deals with our uh, teeth. Okay, so those doctors are actually known as dentists. So this uh, so the doctors sometimes use this kind of powdered pumice for polishing our teeth. So these are the uses of the pumice rock. The next category of the igneous rock is actually the basalt. So basalt are actually, color of the basalt is actually the green, sorry, the basalt color is actually grayish black. Okay, you can see in the diagram the basalt rock, they actually grayish black in color, and they also form by the cooling of the lava. Okay, so when the lava cools very much quickly, okay, this basalt rock are formed. So pumice rock is also formed by the cooling of lava. That means when the lava cools very much quickly, pumice rock also form, basalt rock also form at the same by the same process. But the difference in between the basalt and the pumice is that in case of pumice we have seen that there are some gases are trapped in case of pumice rock, but in case of basalt no gases are trapped. So in case of basalt rock you will found no pores. Okay, no pore you found in case of basalt rock. Okay, and that is why they actually very much um, they are not lightweight. Okay, and they cannot float. That is the reason. Okay, so these are actually the basalt rock, and they actually found beneath the in the floor of the ocean. They're actually present. So basalt rock actually found the floor of the ocean. Okay, and their use are basically in the construction purpose. So construction of some buildings, so, building construction or the house construction, in that area, for that purpose we use actually this kind of basalt rocks. Okay, so the next category and the last category of the igneous rock is actually the granite. Okay, this granite rock you will found it has different colors. Okay, different colors you will found in case of granite. And how it forms? The granite form in the same way as the process of lava cooling or the magma cooling. in the same way that the igneous rocks are formed. So, but the difference is that the granite actually formed under the earth surface. That means, recall, student, recall the process of igneous rock formation. So in the previous class we have discussed that sometime what happens, some igneous rocks are formed deep below the surface of earth. That means the magma is actually not released on the surface of earth, rather they remains below the surface of the earth. Okay, and they cools down in that area, but that cooling process is actually very much slow. Okay, and that in that way also the igneous rocks are formed. So that is actually the granite rock formation. Okay, that means granite rock formation process is very much slow process. Okay, because they required huge time. They that means in that case, as they are formed below the earth surface, so the magma that cools below the earth surface required huge time. So the cooling of magma is actually takes place slowly, okay, under the ground or under the earth surface, and in this way the granite rock is formed. Okay, and for that way the granite rock is very much hard rock and very strong. So among the all the types of igneous rocks, the granite is actually the hardest rock of the all type of, among the igneous rock, the granite is the hardest rock. And granite rock is actually, that is why they are used in the construction purpose. Okay, they are also used in the construction purpose, constructing of buildings and monuments. They are actually used, and as they are found in different colors, so they will when they used in the construction purpose, they will increase the aesthetic value, or they will increase the beauty of that structure. You can see in this diagram there is an uh, palace is made up of the palace is made up by granite rock. Okay, so this palace is actually present in Mysuru. Okay, Mysore is actually a region of actually the western part of our India, where this palace is situated, and there is actually in that construction gray granite is actually used. Okay, and you can see here in this diagram. So I think we have discussed all the, so we have discussed about different kinds of igneous rocks, and you have, I think you have understood the uh, types of igneous rock and their properties and where they are actually used. Okay, now let's proceed in the next category of the rocks, that is the sedimentary rocks. So these sedimentary rocks, how they actually form. Okay, so we will first discuss about their process of formation of sedimentary rocks, and then we will discuss about the types of sedimentary rocks or the example of sedimentary rocks. Then we'll uh, also see the uses, okay, where they use the sedimentary rocks. So let us first discuss the process of formation of sedimentary rocks. So how the sedimentary rocks are formed. So let us see a diagram. Okay, in this diagram you can see that, students, you know the sedimentary rocks, these are actually, sediments means actually the deposition. Okay, so they actually, sedimentary rocks are actually, sedimentary rocks actually formed from the deposition of the different rock particles. Okay, so now what is the process of sedimentary rock formation? At first what happens, some large rocks, okay, sometimes broken into small pieces, okay, by the process of strong winds, by the process of flowing water, some, so that by the action of the strong winds and the flowing water, the big rock particle, sometimes what happens, they breaks into tiny pieces. Okay, so when the rocks, huge sized rock, when breaks into tiny pieces, by the action of strong winds and by the action of flowing water. This process is actually called as weathering. Okay, so when this first step is the weathering of huge sized rocks on the surface of earth. You know that on the surface of earth huge sized rocks are found on the in the previous very primitive earth. You know, students, in the during the process of soil formation we have discussed that during the primitive earth, during the period of primitive earth, at the time no soil actually found. At first the huge sized rocks are found. So what happens, we that huge sized rocks when breaks into tiny pieces by the process of weathering, that means by the action of wind and by the action of water, they breaks into small pieces. So when the breaks into small pieces, the next step, they go into the river stream. They These rock particles when goes into the rivers, okay, they by the action of rivers current, water current, they flows and they actually flows one place to another place. That means they actually transport it from one place to another place. And you know that rivers are actually mixed, or rivers are actually merged with the oceans. Okay, and where their speed actually becomes slow. So where the rivers actually um, mixed up, rivers are actually mixed up in the oceans. So when the rivers mixed up in the with the oceans, at that position the river current, that means the water current of the river becomes slows down. So when the river current or the water current becomes slows down, these tiny rock particles then actually deposited, or they actually settle down, okay, on the bed of the rivers or on the bed of the oceans where the rivers actually meet. Okay, so where the rivers actually slows their water current, slows their speed, at that position the tiny rock particles deposited or settled down. Okay, so what happens next? In this way, when the rock particles, small rock particles settle down and down, they will actually form layer and layer and layer. So in this way the layers are actually settled down and the huge amount of layers are actually formed by the course of time. Okay, so in this way several layers are actually formed. Okay, several layers actually formed of the tiny rock particles. So the layers of tiny rock particles are formed. So when the layers of tiny rock particles are actually formed, you can see this fourth step. So in this case you can see the different layers of the tiny rock particles. So what happens, those rock particles are at the present at the bottom, that means the present below, okay, the present deepest layer, they feel huge pressure, because on their above you can see huge or different uh, multiple layers actually form. So when the multiple layers are formed, their weight create a pressure at the bottom layer. So the at the bottom layer what happens, so that is actually the compaction. The compaction means the when the different or several or the multiple layers create a pressure at the bottom layer. So that is actually compaction. Okay, so by the process of compaction, these tiny small rock particles then actually fuse to each other. Okay, that process called cementing. So cementing means those tiny rock particles under the huge pressure uh, join to each other, or we can say that fuse to each other, and they will convert into the final sedimentary rocks. So in this way the sedimentary rocks are actually formed. So in this diagram you can see the same diagram here. Okay, the sedimentary rocks. So at first what happens, so the tiny rock particles blown away with the river water, and somewhere they actually settled where the river water current or the river speed becomes slow. That in that area the tiny rock particles start settles down. Okay, start settling down, and that process called as sedimentation. Sedimentation is the process where by the process that sedimentation is the process in which the rock particles are actually settled down. Okay, and in this way, when the multiple layers of the rock particles are settles down, so like in this diagram, this is the deepest layer. So you can see this deepest layer actually feels huge pressure, because above this deepest layer multiple layer of rocks are actually deposited. Okay, so you can see in this, here it is written that if you go deepest, or the you if you go at the bottom, the pressure actually increasing. Okay, okay, pressure actually increasing. So that at the bottom, or at the bed level, or at the deepest part, the small rock particles feel the highest pressure, and under this highest pressure these rock particles becomes fused to one another, and that process called as cementing. So cementing is the process by which the rock particles fuse to each other, and they will convert it into these sedimentary rocks. So this is the final step where actually the sedimentary rocks are formed. So that is the overall process of the formation of the sedimentary rocks. So I think you have understood the process. Okay, so in this way the sedimentary rocks are formed. So that is actually written over there. Okay, so now what are the example of the sedimentary rocks? The sandstone, conglomerate, limestone, shell. These are the few examples of sedimentary rocks. These are very much important. Okay, you can see in this diagram, this is a sandstone, conglomerate, limestone, and shell. Students, you can notice that there are some mark, okay, or some this kind of marking. You can see, you can observe some marking, parallel marking. Okay, some parallel marking are there. So why this parallel marking, or the sign of layers? So these are actually the sign of layers. Okay, that means these markings are actually found because they are actually found by the they're actually formed by different layers of rocks. When the different layers are actually fused, that is the reason this kind of uh, parallel marking you can see in the case of sedimentary rocks. Okay, so these are the example of sedimentary rocks. So now we are going to discuss about the uses of sedimentary rocks, where they actually used. So the limestone actually used for making cement and glass. Limestone used actually for making the cement. You know the cement is actually used in case of construction, making buildings and houses. We use the cement. Okay, cement are actually those powdered form, okay, of the limestone. So that is very much used in case of construction. And glass, you know, that also found from the limestone. Then sandstone used in case of constructing buildings. Also sandstone is also used, sandstones are also used in the construction of buildings. The chalk, you know the chalk, we are writing, we when we writing on the blackboard we use the chalk. The chalk is also kind of sedimentary rock, and it is actually found this chalk is actually made from the limestone. Okay, then shell is also example of sedimentary rocks. And the shell is actually used in case of making of tiles and roofs. You know the tiles and roofs you can see in the house, they are also used in the tiles are actually used in our construction of buildings and a house. Okay, so that tiles are actually, or the some roofs or tiles are where we use the shell rock. Shell is actually example of sedimentary rock. So these are the uses of the sedimentary rocks that you have to know and you have to remember. You know the Red Fort, where it is Red Fort is located. You know the Red Fort is located in New Delhi. That is our capital of our country, and this Red Fort is actually situated in Delhi. That is our capital. And this Red Fort, the made up of sandstone. Very much important. You should know this Red Fort is made up of sandstone, and sandstone is what is nothing but as an example of sedimentary rocks. So I think you have understood the sedimentary rocks. So the next and the last type or the category of rock is actually the metamorphic rock. Okay, so metamorphic rock is the last and the third category of rocks. So now, what is the metamorphic rock? The metamorphic rock is nothing but actually the modified rock or the modified version of the igneous rock and sedimentary rock. You can say that it is the modified version of igneous and sedimentary rocks. Okay, but how the metamorphic rocks are uh, formed? So actually, your name suggests metamorphic. You know that meta means change. Okay, meta means actually it means change, and morphic it means the appearance, outer appearance, or the structure. Okay, so the morphic means the structure or the appearance of anything. So the meaning of metamorphic means change in the appearance or change in the structure. So metamorphic rocks, it means when the change of the rocks change in the appearance of the rocks takes place, then only these metamorphic rocks are formed. Okay, so metamorphic rocks are nothing but the modified version of igneous rock and sedimentary rock. So let us discuss about how they actually form. So actually you can see the metamorphic rocks are actually uh, formed from the existing igneous rock and sedimentary rocks. You can see the existing, that means igneous rock and sedimentary rocks are already existing. From that existing rocks, they the metamorphic rocks are formed. But how metamorphic rocks formed from these igneous and sedimentary rocks? Sometimes what happens, sometimes some natural calamities we will see in our environment on the earth surface. Some natural calamities we observed every time, like earthquake or any kind of natural calamities. So like example, for example, earthquake. What happens during the earthquake? During the earthquake, during the earthquake, that there are huge cracks developed on the earth surface. Huge cracks developed on the earth surface. Okay, when the earthquake takes place. So at that time, accidentally what happens, the existing igneous rock and sedimentary rocks can go into the cracks, and they can go inside the earth surface. Okay, that means they can push into the deep of the earth surface, and in this way they actually go under the earth surface. So by this kind of activity like earthquake, so this igneous rock and sedimentary rock can go into the cracks of the earth, cracks that they formed during the earthquake. So in this way the igneous rock and sedimentary rocks can reach the reach below the they can reach below the earth surface by by some natural calamities. So when they reach the reach under the surface of the earth, when they reach deepest part of the surface of earth, what happens? Like this is the earth crust. Okay, and some kind of, and this is the surface. So from the surface, if some rocks go deep into this deep under the surface, from the surface, the rocks, igneous rocks and sedimentary rocks sometimes goes under the earth surface. What happens? So like they reaches here. So when they reaches deep, when they reaches deep into the surface, when they reaches deep under this earth surface, what happens? They feels huge pressure. They feels huge pressure, and they also feels huge temperature. Okay, when this rock reaches into the deep, what happens next? Above this rock, that huge earth surface or the earth crust present, so that earth crust have a very much huge volume and very much huge weight. So this huge weight create a huge pressure on this rock. So when the earth surface create a huge pressure on this rock, that is actually present below them, at that time, by the action of huge pressure and temperature, that below the earth surface huge temperature is present. So the temperature is also very much high here, and that pressure is also very much high in this deep region. And by the action of this huge pressure, and as well as by the action of heat, this igneous or the sedimentary rocks then converted into a another kind of rock, and that is known as metamorphic rock. So that is actually written over there. Some existing igneous and sedimentary rocks, when get pushed deep into the earth, okay, so after that, the weight of the earth above them and the heat inside the earth changes these into the metamorphic rocks, and in this way metamorphic rocks are formed. But it is a very much slow process. That means it requires it huge time it requires, like millions of years. Okay, millions of years it require to convert the igneous or sedimentary rocks into metamorphic rock. It requires millions of years. Now the examples are again very much important. So the example of metamorphic rocks are quartzite and marble are the example of metamorphic rocks. You can see the example of metamorphic rock was also given here. The quartzite and marble, these are the metamorphic rock. They formed from which type of rock? So the quartzite come from the sandstone. Sorry, the arrow will be opposite direction. So these quartzite are actually come from the sandstone, and marble, this metamorphic rock, come from the limestone. And you know that sandstone and limestones are the example of which type of rock? They are the example of sedimentary rocks. So the sedimentary rocks are converted into this metamorphic rock. Okay, I think you have understood. The metamorphic rocks. So you can see in this diagram, what is the diagram of this? What is the diagram? Is this? This is the diagram of the Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal, situated in Agra, not Delhi. Sometimes some students may confuse that or may think that Taj Mahal is situated in Delhi, but it is not in Delhi, but it is situated far from the Delhi. That is actually the Agra. Agra is actually a city where is basically the Taj Mahal is situated, and this Taj Mahal, the made by the Mughal Empire, the Shah Jahan, who make this who made this Taj Mahal. Okay, who construct this Taj Mahal. So Taj Mahal is constructed at the Taj Mahal was constructed by the by an by an by the King Shah Jahan. Okay, and that Taj Mahal is very much very beautiful actually palace, and that is a uh, historical palace, and it is made by the said metamorphic rocks. Okay, that means it is made up of the marble, crystalline marble. So for the construction of this Taj Mahal, the marble rocks are actually used. Okay, so that's all for today. Okay, in the next in the next class we will discuss the remaining portion of this chapter. So till then, stay healthy and stay happy always, and stay in your home. So goodbye, students.